for a spell.
Okay, so now it's a couple days later, and I'm a bad pagan. I've been busy, work, whatnot. So it's taken me a couple days to get to this point, but this is my drying rack. It's one of those electrical dryers, and I'm going to put my herbs into this. So I considered whether or not I should show you this because, as you can see, I already have stuff in here. And actually, this has been sitting in here since last fall. I forgot that I had it here, but I thought it was a good opportunity to show you what you do with the herbs afterwards, and it should be fine. I mean, the point of drying and storing herbs to preserve them is that they won't grow mold if they're dried, and they won't lose effectiveness or decay if they're kept out of direct sunlight. So this is obviously, since it's covered completely, a good place to store herbs just as any other, so I'm sure they'll still be perfectly fine. I picked these just before Samhain last year because it's believed that everything that is food that remains on the ground after Samhain belongs to the fair folk, and I would hardly want to offend them, so this is culinary sage. This is what it looks like after it's dried. So a really great opportunity actually to check that out. See, it's all flat and kind of grayish looking. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick off the various leaves and whatnot, and I'm going to store them in my culinary sage jar, which I have prepared for the purpose. And I probably should go through and pick some of the stuff out of the bottom of it now, because that stuff's probably old enough that I should consider replacing it, and, well, fortunately, I picked a bunch yesterday, so it shouldn't be a problem. So, I'm not going to go through the whole step of that right now. I'm just going to put this stuff down here, and I'll do that as soon as I'm done showing you everything else. And what is that? Thyme. Good. I have my jar of thyme over here. I'll store that in there. More sage to go down here. Dropped a piece of thyme. There we go. Now, if I remember correctly, yes, that's feverfew. I thought it might be catnip, but no, it's feverfew. You can tell by the sort of vaguely frond-shaped leaves, right? So. Right. Down here I have, oh, there's my catnip. I only dried a little bit of it, I guess. And these are, of course, chives. And so this can go over there for now. I generally don't keep these in my apothecary because I usually have them in my kitchen. So if I do happen to need them for magic, I'll just go into the kitchen. Okay, and the rest of these bins are empty. So now, the first thing you're going to want to do when you're setting these up is, of course, it doesn't dry properly unless you've got these mesh, you know, holes through it. That's the whole purpose of that design. So you're going to want to make sure your bottom is as clear as possible, which that isn't, so I will wipe that. And you are going to get other herbs and stuff mixed in here, but it's good to try to minimize it. And you're going to want to put your chamomile on the bottom, because a lot of that, those little yellow flower bits are going to fall into this tray. So why not head it off at the best? So there do the chamomile, there it is. So I'm going to set that all out along this tray here. And I may not be able to dry it all at once. You spread it out so that it doesn't touch each other, if at all possible. This isn't going to be possible with this stuff. But don't layer it too thick either. It's probably the thickest I want that to be there. Anyway, you kind of get the idea, right? Now, yeah, I don't know who's harvesting these, but they sure got a lot of roots. Okay, so this is actually a good opportunity to show you. This is what it looks like when it's mold. You see, when it's got mold on it, right? And you see how it looks different from the other stuff here. It's gone brownish and it smells kind of funky, right? So this is no longer useful. I waited too long before I opened up this bag, so I have to throw some of this stuff out. So this is, you know, I can't dry that. That's no good for herbs. I can probably still get away with this stuff. There's a little bit of mold there, but it'll die once I get the thing going, and it's not on the flowers, so it should be okay. And that one's garbage. Yeah, that one's garbage too. So there you go. That's why you dry it right away. Now, as you can see, I've covered this section here with elderflowers. They're also very loose, and they'll probably fall off and being dried, so they're going to end up mixed up with some of the chamomile at the bottom. Fortunately, I can, you know, they're a little bigger, so they're easier to pick apart. But if you don't want to deal with that, don't dry them together. And this one's filled with more chamomile. Anyway, I'm going to continue working at this for a while, but when it's all done, of course, you just put the lid on it. And then you turn it on. So anyway, that noise is the fan running the air through it, and that'll prevent it from developing mold. And you dry that for probably anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. Sometimes bigger things will take as long as 3 days. I should have noted that when you're drying elderflowers, you can also use elder twigs and leaves in Magick for protection. So I dry them and keep them as well. Now, as to this stuff, the cinquefoil, as you can see, it's drying out nicely on its own. So because this is so big, it's probably better served by wrapping the bottoms up in string and hanging them from, say, your closet doweling or whatever. The point, of course, is to keep it out of the light. If you don't keep it out of the light, then you're going to end up with sort of a pale brownish color. If you do keep it out of the light while you're drying it, it will maintain its green shade. The operative part that you want are these leaves here. I'll probably discard the flowers. Now, I figured to finish it off, I might recommend a couple of books for Magick and herbalism. So this is the classic Culpepper's Complete Herbal. Double check the medicinal information that it gives you in here, because some of it is inaccurate and some of the herbs are poisonous. But this is the classic, which includes things about humors, information about tinctures, very useful stuff. For us witches, this is a fantastic book. The Master Book of Herbalism by Paul Beryl, I guess. Right? But it teaches you how to make infusers, how to do filters, tools you're going to need. Gives you an index you can look things up with. Then it details herbs one at a time. Gives you the magical lore and also the medicinal uses according to formal herbalist study. And of course there is the classic Cunningham's Magic Encyclopedia of Herbs, which gives you details and information, some black and white pictures. In the age of Google, I advise you to Google the name of an herb if you think it might be that herb, and look at what it actually looks like in a photograph, because sometimes it's hard to tell based on the drawings what something is. Okay there, so now it's about, what, 4 days later? 3 or 4 days later, I think 4. And I've been drying the chamomile and whatnot, and you see this is what it looks like now that it's dry. And where is it here? Under here. No, that's not it. Yeah, that's it. This is what the elder branches and flowers look like. Now, as you can see, a bunch of elder flowers and chamomile has accumulated at the bottom of the tray. Now, what I'm doing, in some of these cases, you see how there's still chamomile on the flower there. So what you do is you pinch it, and then the stuff just comes right off. And that's the stuff you want. And the rest of this you discard. Seems a terrible waste, so I will definitely be throwing it on my recycling compost pile. But anyway, so how you separate these if you end up with something like this, right, is that I'm going to sift them with a sifter, and as you can see, the elderflowers are considerably bigger than the little yellow bits and green bits that are the chamomile. The green bits are actually dried leaves, but don't worry, it's not really the part you're after, but it won't hurt you, and it still contains a little bit of the active ingredient of chamomile that makes it so good for you. Yeah, so I'm going to run these through a sifter after, and that will separate the elderflowers from the chamomile. And I will probably end up with a couple of little chamomile buds like this in my elderflowers, but they're pretty easy to pick out. If that all sounds like too much work to you, well, that's the thing about wildcrafting and lawncrafting. It takes a lot of personal work. It's time consuming. So and that's it for our Sit for a Spell today. I'm going to be creating a Patreon account if you'd like to support my work. The link will be in a caption on the video. And thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.